that was great, and I think it's a great tie-in because we're going to have a talk from another really good, awesome friend of ours who, as I said, who's been at every single SkeptiCamp that I have run. He used to live in the Los Angeles area, and he just said, hey, I'd like to come give a talk. I had no idea who he was. I think I was on his podcast when he was beginning. And Kyle and Brandy are now in Vegas, and so they flew in late last night and missed the gig we did last night. But he is a data scientist, so his talks are super interesting about usually AI, and he's done a lot of them. His talks are all on our YouTube channel, which is called the About Time YouTube channel. You'll be able to find it. I think there's a link somewhere in there. You can catch a lot of his talks that he's done on AI, and I always feel so much better after I've heard him talk because he kind of is like, it's cool, it's all right, don't worry, Susan, don't panic. So, I give you Kyle.
All right, everybody, thank you very much. The, I guess, origin of this talk came out of a discussion that maybe I moved back to Chicago, and my dad's cousin said, ooh, it's really dangerous there, isn't it? Which is true, but not on every single block. Just like we have trouble, or maybe we oversee things that aren't there in spirit photography type cases, we also aren't particularly good at interpreting what true risks are, or doing probabilities natively and things like that. So, got me thinking more about risks and what worries we have, and I wanted to build a little audience participation in here. We'll start out with an easy one. Let's say you're traveling from LA to New York. Which is more likely to kill you, flying or driving? Driving. All right, everyone kind of knows this one, yes. So get some numbers to back that up though, and a source here from usafacts.org. In 2022, 47 passenger injuries over 709 billion miles of air traffic. So a lot of flying. Yes, there have been accidents. Yes, there have been crashes. Not that many. In contrast to cars and trucks, at 42, same number, 47, 42, but we're off by 3 orders of magnitude here. Yeah.
I think it's worth pointing out, USA Facts sounds like a random website, but it's actually Steve Ballmer.
Oh yes, so Steve Ballmer, I didn't know that, behind USA Facts. So yeah, 3 orders of magnitude more risky really, traveling by car than by truck.
Kyle?
Yeah.
Shouldn't it be by time? How much time you spend traveling?
So that's a good question. A lot of it is how do you measure it? In this case, we're going by miles traveled, which of course in a plane, you're gonna get a lot more miles, a lot more quickly. If you normalize it the other way, which I tried to do, you more or less get around the same answer, interestingly enough. The data is not as clear because this is how it gets reported, but even by that sense, like, yeah, probably safer by mile if you measure strictly in distance, but still air travel is going to be a little safer for you. So driving in this case, if you take those numbers, 63 times more dangerous, and really the most dangerous part of the flight is the drive to the airport where you're in the car. Next one, here's an interesting one. Maybe we do show of hands with this.
Yeah.
What do you think is more risky, a vending machine or a roller coaster?
Vending machine.
Vending machine. Interesting. So let's start with the roller coaster. A lot of different estimates about this. I went through a couple of studies, and I found this meta-study at the NIH that, depending on who you ask and what data they had and what reporting they got from amusement parks, there's always a lot of caveats and all of these sorts of things. But let's call it around, 3-4 fatalities per year on roller coasters. Higher than I expected, actually. I haven't heard of one of these making the news or whatever, but they're out there. On the other side, found this study, a little old, from the Consumer Product Safety Commission. They looked into soda vending machines and these kinds of things, and discovered in their deep analysis, looking through cases, 37 deaths, 113 injuries starting in 1978. So this gets complicated, though. This was published in 1995. So a little bit old. Maybe people are less bad at knocking over vending machines these days. I don't know. Do you have another question?
Well, you have to adjust by hour of exposure, right?
Yeah, adjusting by hour of exposure is an interesting case. You're going to be on a roller coaster a little bit longer than a vending machine in this case, like with miles and with distance, it's more of like, we're counting aggregates here. So we have the total population. We don't know how many people went on roller coasters versus vending machines. But if we look at risk across these two things, the story gets a little bit more complicated here. As I pointed out, this is from 95. So in that time period, they tracked 113 deaths. How many deaths do you think have happened in the, 30 years since?
Way more.
Way more? Incorrect. What? 0 documented deaths in vending machines since 95. Now, why?
They've gotten heavier?
People have changed the vending machines so they don't tip over.
You're right. There's generally given 3 reasons why.
Interesting.
I think the first reason is the most important one. They put in these physical anchors. These are now, I don't know what exactly the laws are, but presumably after many deaths, they said, let's put in a $5 piece of metal to anchor this thing, and I hope that's some sort of law. Probably that's the main reason that number went to 0. There is also argument from industry that they are doing better dispensing mechanisms. So you see less often that turny thing that always leaves your product hanging and then you have to shake it. They've gotten rid of that and gotten better dispensing things that are not going to steal from you as much, resulting in less shaking and less tipping of vending machines. And lastly, there's also a claim that warning labels have reduced this number. All 3 of these treatments were tried at once, so it's hard to say which one was really effective.
The warning label says, do not pull.
Do not shake. Do not pull.
There's those pictures.
Your snack is not worth your life. So, yeah, a really good infographic maybe is done the whole trick here, but the brackets are in place too. So, use a vending machine. Maybe be afraid of a roller coaster, but even that is a rare incidence of fatality. But a non-zero one compared to vending machines. All right, similar travel question. What do you think, bus or train?
Ooh, that's hard.
Tricky. I'm on this Reddit called /bitch I'm a train, and the train always wins, basically. So here's just some general transportation stuff. Motorcycles most dangerous by far. I figured you guys would get that. Bus and train, close on the relative scale of motorcycle, but buses much more dangerous than trains. Again, I'd watch one of those videos where there's a bus on the track and the train slices it like butter. I think that's probably the explanation for why.
That's like rock, paper, scissors sort of thing.
Very much so.
Train, bus, yeah.
Train wins.
Yeah.
All right. Now, any agility, or what is it? Not agility junkies. Adrenaline junkies in the crowd? Any skydivers or base jumping? Yeah. So for those who don't know, I'll give you some background. I didn't really know about base jumping, so I started doing some research here. Luckily, the U.S. Parachute Association informed me pretty good. Skydiving is the one you think of. You go up in a plane, you put on a parachute, you jump out. Base jumping, similar idea, but you're going off like a building or a rock face or something like this. And base jumping, you have to do a lot more precisely, or you're going to expose yourself to risk. In fact, quite a bit more. Skydivers, one in about a little under 400,000 injuries per jump, so relatively safe in some sense. But 1 in 2,300 jumps results in an injury when doing base jumping.
Proximity to hard things.
Sure.
And often arrest, too.
Yeah, even this though is a little bit, I'm throwing some numbers at you and I'm giving some sources, but there's always an oh by the way to it. You have to look at the data in different ways. So just for reference, if we look from the same place, fatalities is decreasing. It has been so since about the 70s, I think, which is the reason we see the 60s lower is a pickup in popularity and accessibility and things like that. And whether it's from better safety standards in the industry or who knows what, this is on the decline, but still quite a risky thing to do. Let's move on to deaths from natural disasters. Tornadoes versus winter weather.
Winter weather.
Guesses from the crowd? Winter weather?
Winter
all around?
weather.
Nobody for tornado? Well, this one is a little tricky. And so here's the numbers I got from this study that PRB.org put out. 2,300 deaths by tornado in that time period of, 34 years versus 3,600 from winter weather. But I'm going to claim these are equal, I know for the math geeks in the crowd, that's an incorrect statement. But for the statisticians, I'm going to argue it, because a lot of this comes down to what are we counting? How do we count it? If you get on an icy road with, the black ice, and you go into the skid and you have a car crash, is that a car fatality or is that a winter weather fatality? It really depends on how you count it. The tornado, did you die the day of the tornado or suffer an injury and pass a few days later? How is that counted?
And aren't way more people exposed to extreme winter weather than are exposed to tornadoes?
Very true, a lot more exposure to winter weather. So by that argument, safer to be in winter weather than the tornado. But if we're looking at absolute counts across the whole population, you get numbers that are close enough to me to say they're equal. What I really look for is something that I call an order of magnitude or better. So if it were 23,000 instead of 2.3 thousand for tornado, I would say, well, that's, you can plus or minus this by 10-20% each depending on how we count it. These numbers are kind of close. This one I'll call a draw, everyone gets the point. Here's one that is going to turn out to not be quite a draw. In the NFL, there's a lot of talk about injuries, the CTB, the traumatic brain injury thing. I even learned that the helmets that they use today, which were introduced to add safety, the old helmets you'll see in old black and white photos and stuff are like these cloth things that just kind of look like more of a vest quality. And people were saying, hey, we got to have a stronger, more protective thing than this. And they built the helmets we see today. They're plexiglass or whatever plastic they are. Turns out, rather than introducing safety, those helmets became effectively a weapon for football players. That they could hit harder with those. So, kind of backfired. And we get a lot of public news about injuries in the NFL, of course. Famous people with a lot of money make the news when they have these issues. Sometimes those injuries have effects on their mental health, and that'll flare up, and we'll hear those stories. But commercial fishermen, there's that most dangerous catch show that's out there. I haven't watched, but I know that's popular. So I don't know if I've swayed anyone. Who thinks the NFL is more dangerous? Everyone's for fish, okay, or fishermen. You're right, commercial fishing estimated 200x more dangerous. Pulling this from health data on Wikipedia about injuries in football players. They are common. 1.5 deaths per 100,000 is a high number compared to just about any other industry, except for commercial fishermen and a couple other ones. So join the NFL versus becoming a commercial fisherman if you're risk averse, I guess. Now here's another one that's kind of arguable as they come. Drunk driving, text driving. And this gets argued a lot of different ways. You could kind of play both sides of the debate table on this one. I'm going to focus on reaction time only, not like injury or likelihood of car accident or stuff like that. Primarily because that we have good data on. There are studies that look at putting people on a closed course, allowing them to drink to achieve a specific blood alcohol content, 0.08 in this case, which is usually the legal limit. And at the same time, they had non-drunk people with a phone texting on the same closed course system. What do you guys think? Whose reaction time is worse, a drunk driver or a texting driver?
Texting.
Yep, that's what the study found. Pretty close though, actually. Again, this is within that sort of not an order of magnitude difference. They didn't check both at the same time in this study, but I wouldn't recommend either based on these results.
Let's try it.
All right, here's another fun one. Are you more likely to die by lightning strike or by drowning in the bathtub?
But bathtub, how do you,
Well,
by
but
accident?
You
mean?
slip and fall.
Or
and-
somebody drowned you?
So, fair point. I would think if someone specifically drowned you, that probably counts as homicide. I should hope so anyways. This is like maybe, passing out, that kind of thing. I'm getting all this data from the CDC. They track a whole bunch of fatalities by categories.
So how long ago did you check the CDC?
Yeah. You can't trust that.
Fair question.
Is that counting hot tubs?
I don't know if it counts hot tubs. They did not break out hot tubs separately. So I'll have to do some background research on that. But what do you think? Are you more likely, given again here, this is sheer volume, United States citizens, deaths per year, not necessarily exposure. How more likely are you to die by bathtub versus lightning? Who's thinking lightning?
A lot of people survive lightning strikes.
This is true. People do survive lightning strikes.
Yeah.
But I've been looking at bathtubs and or I've been looking at real estate. Let me tell you, bathtubs are on the out. They're not around as much. People like showers, but as it stands, yeah, bathtubs 20x more dangerous
Wow.
than lightning strikes. So
Perhaps that's why.
take a shower. I don't know.
Slip and fall.
Is it children too, though?
I don't know if it includes children. That's a good follow-up as well. Yeah, they would be probably a higher risk group.
Those
Are
would be
they
the
drunk or
deliberate ones.
texting?
An added complication.
Texting in the bathtub, that'll do it.
All right, here's an interesting one. This is bee and wasp related deaths. So typically that's not because, death by 1,000 stings, it's an allergy kind of a thing, but nonetheless there are fatalities every year related to bee and wasp stings. Partially I think some people have allergies, but there could be other effects. And then of course a dog attack, dog deaths, those definitely go on every year. Got some solid numbers for you. What does the audience think? Which is
Dog.
more dangerous?
Dog.
Bees.
Dog.
Kind of a split audience here, all right? Bees, we get about 72, give or take, bee wasp deaths per year versus 42 from dogs. Now there are a lot more bees and wasps, but they're also less threatening, so hard to suss out from first principles, but the data seems to suggest bees and wasps are the thing you want to fear more than dogs, even if our, kind of unconscious thinks the other way. I would be afraid to go near a yelping dog, but I fail to fear the bee on some occasions. All right, well, Southern California and Northern California have seen a lot of wildfires. We're expanding those often, I think, due to climate changes, and maybe we're not managing the forests quite well, but we also see flooding related issues with climate change, and flooding's always been a thing in certain places anyway. Wildfire versus flooding, what do you guys think?
Flooding.
Yeah, it seems like the consensus has pretty much got it. Based on sheer, just raw numbers of deaths per year, about a little under 6 times more likely to die in a flood than die in a wildfire. I think this one is somewhat intuitive because the flood can sneak up on you a lot faster.
Yeah.
Wildfires certainly, are explosive and can become uncontrolled, but there's a little bit more warning system, yeah. In fact, something I recently learned was you don't have to really be in the main fire area. Often what it is just embers are blowing in the wind and it catches your neighbor's house and then suddenly catches your house, and that's how it spreads. So you get a little bit more warning than suddenly the levee has broken or that kind of thing. All right, I think this is one of my last
What is
bullet.
that?
This is
Oh,
a coconut
coconut.
falling from a tree, which could hit you on the head and could cause a fatality. And the other is a shark who would presumably eat you. So we got these two options. What do you think is more deadly?
Coconut.
Coconut, okay. Well, let's start by looking at the sharks. I could only find data on unprovoked attacks. That was a very specific thing that kept putting in all the research. So I couldn't tell you what the risk for a provoked attack is. I'm not interested in figuring it out myself, but we do see unprovoked shark attacks. 5-year average, 64. So, these do happen when you count worldwide. Those are small numbers when you think of how many billions of people are in the world, but non-zero numbers nonetheless. There's this shark guy from some university somewhere in Florida, George Burgess. He's quoted as saying, "Falling coconuts kill 150 people worldwide each year, 15 times the number of fatalities attributed to sharks." So all of those out there who said shark, well, you're not exactly right. The story gets a little bit more complicated. So George here got that information from some sort of media group. Today they're called Collins Group. Back then they had a different name. And the quote they put out was, "In the entire world, sharks kill fewer than 10 people a year, while coconuts falling from trees take out 150 people." Anyone know of a coconut fatality? A friend of a friend, anything like that?
No.
Well, the earliest actual documented academic work on this comes from Dr. Peter Barse in 1984 in the Journal of Trauma. He wrote a paper called "Injuries Due to Falling Coconuts." He was a doctor in somewhere, I think in Manila, somewhere in Southeast Asia. He had admitted 9 patients over 4 years due to coconut-related injuries, as you do. 0 of them died. There was 2 anecdotal reports of deaths in the village that people got hit and maybe didn't make it in. Anecdotal nonetheless. So he found 2 maybe in 4 years. Let's call it 0 in 4 years. Someone else before me got on the trail of this, writing for a place called thestraightdope.com. She reached out to George and said, George, where'd you get this number? You're a shark guy. You're trying to talk about how benign sharks are, and you pointed coconuts as something to fear more than sharks. He said, oh, I got it off the internet. Great place to go. Specifically, this brittle British travel insurance firm called Club Direct, which has that new name. What is it they called now? Collision Group, or not Collision Group, was it? Collinson Group. They used to be Direct, Club Direct, same people. So then I reached out to them, and as best we can tell, Club Direct made that up whole cloth. So the timeline starting in '84, the guy who was the doctor did find some coconut deaths. PNG, I forget what PNG is, that might be a typo. He actually won the Ig Nobel Prize a little while later and got a lot of media attention. Jake?
Kyle, just to be clear, has any of your talk been underwritten by the big coconut industry?
No, but I do have a good coupon for coconut water, unrelated. So 2002, this media piece comes out. It seems they made it up whole cloth. There are no deaths from coconuts. Burgess didn't do his fact checking, and the media, of course, picked up on this because what a fun story, but for the fact that it's not true. So your brain is often lying to you about what's dangerous.
Yeah, we're in Hawaii, and under the trees there were a lot of coconuts, and people asked about it, and they said it works better than signs. People don't believe signs, but when they see a bunch of coconuts, visitors love to come and set up their picnic table, they put the blanket out under the trees because it's beautiful. And so leaving the coconuts on the ground makes people think, oh, maybe this is not a good place. They say it works better than the sign.
That's a good finding, yeah. People see that coconut and know what could happen. And it's not without risk. There are people who go to the hospital, that's a heavy object potentially hitting you in the head. It's just the fatality part that's exaggerated. Now overall, this group did pretty good, I think, on sussing out some of my more tricky ones there, but overall, we're bad assessors of true risk, primarily, I think, because we don't have natural computing probability engines in our head. We evolved in slightly different ways and develop heuristics and things that value other aspects. So let's think last about gun death. What do you guys think of when you hear about gun deaths?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, a lot of these mass shootings, of course, make the news. Tragic national tragedies. Lots of accidents make the news. Gang violence, of course, going back to what my dad's cousin was saying about Chicago, a very real thing. There are, I think, 1 gun death per day in Chicago.
Those 3 mass shootings.
But when you put all this stuff together, I'm not pro or against guns per se. The facts tell a slightly different story. 58% of gun deaths are suicides.
Well, that wasn't on the list.
38% homicides, and 4% other, including accidents and coconut / gun related things, I guess. So gun statistics, they're counterintuitive. We see what makes the news heavy. We see the saddest stories that bubble to the top, and those are all true, but they're also somewhat anecdotal when summarized. Suicide's been the majority of gun deaths since '95. That hasn't changed. It's not a fluke. That comparison, something I'll touch on in a little bit, is a big part, in my opinion, of how we assess risk. And regardless of the numbers, 4% is small, but it's still tragic. What about self-driving cars and human drivers? Any
Human
guesses
drivers.
here? Human drivers are more likely to cause an accident, or the
Cause
less likely?
accidents?
Yes.
Human.
Human?
Yeah.
Well,
They're
I
texting in the bathtub.
Fair point. I will call this one, we don't know yet, and that's for a number of different reasons. As best I could as I looked into this, you can find good arguments both ways. First challenge I had in coming to any answer on this is we're really talking about 2 different technologies. You have the truly driverless, like the Waymo systems, that have been surprisingly low in deaths. There's one I found out about out of 127 plus million miles driven, and that death was not really the Waymo's fault. It was a human-driven Tesla that rear-ended them and caused a fatality in the Waymo. So I wouldn't put that on the Waymo, but also let's remind ourselves what Waymo is. It's a new company that's in a few specific locations, it's not driving every road in America, it's driving a subset. So if we want to compare it to human drivers, we have to find some way to normalize that, which isn't clear how to do. Then you have, of course, driver-assisted technology like the Tesla autopilot. We've seen a lot more deaths there, but I'm sure Tesla would say they're all the humans' fault. There may be other groups that would say it's all Tesla's fault. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. But either of these, just by these sheer numbers alone, would suggest that some sort of automation is safer than human driving. But we don't have a concrete apples to apples on this, in my opinion. We really have a reporting asymmetry. We're highly counting on a lot of AV stuff. We're tabulating these numbers and watching carefully. Robin?
Do you have the Waymos in Vegas? Curious.
I don't think we have Waymos in Vegas. I've never seen
I
one.
think they're only near the strip.
Maybe they're near the strip. I think that's right. Local Vegas people never go to the strip, so I haven't seen them.
And here it's just in San Francisco.
Yeah, so a closed course essentially, which gives them an advantage towards safety, which is what you'd want. The other problem you bump into here is the denominator. You know, these automated cars can put a lot more miles on the road than we typically do as people. They don't get tired and that sort of thing. So it's not always apples to apples. It's works in their favor because they can drive a lot more miles. And then there's just causation versus involvement. Was an AV present versus the AV caused the accident is a question that's hard to really establish. So I find this to be really an unsettled argument. Whatever the case may be, though, I don't think driverless cars will become less safe in the future. They may fail to improve the product, but one would assume it can only get better. So whether or not you think they're safer today, it seems inevitable we're headed in that direction.
Where's the human driver numbers?
The human driver numbers I chose not to include because they're all over the board. The insurance companies give a lot different statements than like the Highway Safety Commission, and it'll suggest they're much higher, but it's really apples to oranges.
So there was a news story within the last couple of months about some federal agency official saying that the discrepancy is huge in damage for driverless cars now. I think that probably included Tesla.
Yeah, it does seem to be the case.
And saying that it was so big that there's kind of a moral obligation to move that process along faster.
Yeah, I think that is an interesting argument that if they truly are safer, we should be taking people out from behind the driver's seat and maybe moving towards a place where it's required. I think inevitably that's probably correct. I don't know that we're quite there yet. I don't know that we're not either. I think we're in a period where the data is hard to analyze, at least for someone in my position. You have a lot of companies positioning the data. Now, the World Health Organization doesn't necessarily have a motive to misreport, but they're collecting data that they can get through whatever channels they can get. So I think it probably leans safer, like you're saying, but I'm not convinced
I've been
yet.
following this for several years. And,
Yep.
In the case of Tesla, for example, if the white lines are clear on the road, it's probably good, and you should, take the wheel if the white lines are not clear. So that's a case where just a little bit of smarts on the driver's part kind of removes the danger that's there.
That's true, yeah. I think there's also a cross comparison that can be done here of like a driver that properly knows how to operate their AV and knows things like you said, that if the white line disappears, I should be paying more attention, maybe take over. And an operator who doesn't know that and is sitting in the back watching a Harry Potter movie.
Texting.
Or texting or whatever. There are both kinds out there.
While in the bathtub.
Yeah, in the bathtub, yeah.
So, what's unstated here and what's interesting as a potential second talk is one of the implicit dangers of electric vehicles, and that's the cost. And as a result of not only Tesla, but of every other major brand offering an electric vehicle or two or three or four or five at exorbitant prices, what's happened is that the average cost of automobiles has skyrocketed since the introduction of electric vehicles. And with the cost of new vehicles rising, the cost of used vehicles has also risen exorbitantly. And so that's one potential danger that not only awaits us, but is here already. A second issue, which we're all aware of to some degree or another, is that electric vehicles, and especially autonomously driving electric vehicles, reduce our level of volition and autonomy. Because once they become the norm, which is likely to happen, we're going to have less decision-making power on the road.
That's a
And
good
when
thing.
we are on the road, every single movement, every foot, every inch, every destination is going to be tracked and stored on a server indefinitely, as in forever. So there are potential consequences and dangers aside from, obviously this is very important. Life and death is obviously a very important issue. But there are other offshoots and problems which are introduced by electric vehicles and by autonomously driving electric vehicles as well.
For sure.
Getting back to the original thing, I think in 50 years, maybe in 30 years, people are gonna be amazed, astonished, and incredulous that we used to let people actually drive cars going 60, 70 miles an hour on a 2-lane road,
Right.
separated only by paint.
Are you from the future?
I think it's, yeah, I agree with you that it's inevitable we'll head in that direction. I mean, how society chooses to adopt this, I know people, at least of certain generations, are very attached to, I want to be the pilot of my automobile, and that's hard to just say we're going to make it go away. But the biggest takeaway for me is safety will not get worse with automated cars. It will only get better from here. And truly, they have an unfair advantage. The same way, you know, it used to be someone who drove around the city a lot, knew the secret passageways, and at rush hour take this street, not that street. Well, Google Nav knows that better than any cab driver does because it's everywhere. It has sensors everywhere that person does not.
Well, they're updated all the time.
It's live.
Truly, yeah. And in the same way, like a person hard braking on the highway expects then the person behind them to see the brake light and brake. But if all the machines are transmitting that message locally, the automated vehicles, when they have that solution, will just have an inherent advantage that we don't have. So,
Well, maybe not fatalities, but fender benders, which are the vast majority, inattentive driving, distracted driving, where you rear end somebody or a lane change, and the automation really reduces that
yeah,
dramatically.
it's a very difficult thing to say concretely with data because there's so many angles we can take on it.
Yeah.
Now, there's some reasons why we are bad at these kinds of assessments. The first one that comes to mind for me is the availability heuristic. So we judge things on how much it comes to mind. If we were in a place where there were more sharks, maybe we'd be thinking about sharks more. We would have said, oh, there's a greater risk for shark. I've been to the beach 4 days when they said you can't go in today because there's a shark. But when you're not around them, out of sight, out of mind. There's also a dread risk versus a statistical risk. We hear something like plane versus car, and it's like, oh, going down in a plane, that's a nightmare a lot of people have. You're not the pilot, it's out of your control. But you know, nuclear versus coal, you can live near a coal plant and you're getting the risk of earlier death is higher than not living near a coal plant, but probably people in that area aren't thinking of that on a day-to-day basis, or at least they're not feeling it on a day-to-day basis, even if it's on their mind. When there's a big catastrophe or something is unfair or unjust, it certainly sticks in our mind. Maybe the most important one is denominator blindness. Everything about rates and fatalities is incidences over population. So how many people got an injury or died as a result of something versus how many people were exposed to it in the first place. We don't always know both of these numbers. We could pretty easily know incidents like the top number. We don't necessarily know how many people were potentially exposed in that way. And the last bias I wanted to put on the table is just the power of narrative. We're a storytelling species, much more than we are a number counting species. So Jaws certainly had an impact on the rate at which people are afraid of sharks, but very few of them, I think, are checking that CDC data to see, you know, have we seen any trends of increased shark attacks or things like that? Hasn't been true. So what do we do about it? How do we assess risk? What tools can I offer you that will help along the way? And I've got 3 basic concepts to share. The first is per what? So, okay, we have some large number of deaths. They're all tragic. They're all a bad situation. We know the numerator. We don't know that denominator. Or as we might put it in another context, the incidence rate. So how many particular situations versus the total population. And that might be the population of the US. But if we're counting shark attacks, that's kind of unfair. There's a lot of Americans who will never be within 100 miles of a shark. So maybe that's not the right denominator. Can be difficult to count.
Land shark.
Well, there's land shark too, yeah.
Sharknado.
But whenever I hear someone talk about risk or a statistic, my first thought is, what's the numerator? What's the denominator? And it's not always an easy question to answer, but it's always the right question. Second one, compared to what? So there's, we're saying sharks are more dangerous than coconuts or more dangerous than wasp fatalities and things like that. Everything is dangerous. Every type of food you can eat is dangerous in some context. Water can be dangerous in different contexts. It really is a comparison of something to what. We found out lightning strikes are rather rare. So if you tell me my risk is less than a lightning strike, that's effectively zero to my human brain in some certain way. And the last question to ask is, who's telling me this and why?
Yeah.
So if, I'm trying to be reassured that it's safe to go to some paradise tourist destination and the coconuts won't get me, nor will the sharks, and it's coming from a travel bureau, that's a lot different from than some CDC paper or something along those lines. I like to keep a couple of helpful reference points in my head too. You hear about, there were 50,000 injuries or deaths related to X, Y, or Z thing. That's a lot. I couldn't name 50,000 people. Certainly tragic, but we've got to think in terms of the scale and the size. Any guesses of the world population and the US population before I reveal this for you?
World population?
As of when?
8 billion something? Or?
I rounded, so as of sometime recently, it's about 8 million in the world, and about 340, billion, thank you, 340 million in the US, which means we are 4.1% of the planet. A non-trivial amount, but we're less than 1 in 20 people are Americans. Similarly, what about Canada versus the US? You guys have the US population. How big is Canada in comparison?
100 million?
No. 22 million.
22 million, yeah. Adrian told me, she counted them today.
The number I heard that I
She
like
knows
the
them
most
all.
is the one I use, 10%. Not true, but easy to remember, close and useful. 12%. Roughly
Wow.
10% of the US population is the population of Canada.
Must have been the
Who's all
French.
west, east Canada?
So,
We don't count
this
the
one slipped in
French.
at the end. There's a growing fear of things like, should you let your kids walk to school? You hear a case about, and there are cases, kids get picked up by strangers, it's awful. More often than not, though, they're picked up by a relative in a situation like that. And more kids die as car passengers, by and large, every year, being driven to school than walking to school and being picked up by a stranger. So, in comparison, that doesn't make one safer or less safe, depending on all things considered, but it does mean that this is a fear that could be considered irrational. So next time something scares you, I would say ask one or all three of these questions. Per what? Per how many people? Compared to what? And who's telling me this?
And I would add that a ChatGPT prompt would be good for these kinds of comparisons. So as an example of compare fatality risk between Tesla vehicles using autopilot and manually driven passenger vehicles expressed strictly as deaths per million vehicle miles traveled.
So yeah, like with anything, I think a large language model is a potential useful first step as a tool. It can hallucinate, as we all know, but it can also provide citations now and references, which I asked for and a lot of things that it helped me with for this. So those are links you can follow then that can lead you to actual studies and actual reports. The same way just a Google search was not enough, a large language query isn't enough, but it certainly gives us a good head start and some good reference points. Any other questions?
Now, you often hear something, a chemical or some sort of environmental factor doubles the rate of something or another, which sounds really alarming. And then you look, the original was 1 per 10,000, and now it's 2 per 10. Well, yeah, it is a doubling, but is it really significant? And so it's sensationalist kind of reporting to get your attention, but a lot of people don't read far enough down to see the actual numbers or if they even publish them.
Yeah, many deaths and many injuries are tragic, and they make good news stories, and that story is what sits with us, not necessarily the statistic. Any other questions? Jerry?
Just to be clear, Did big data subsidize any of this talk?
Big data didn't subsidize anything here today, I can honestly say that. We'll see what happens in
You're
the
just
next
speaking
talk.
for yourself, though.
Right.
Yeah.
My views are my
It
own.
might come up.
Are you welcoming questions now?
Yes, please.
Oh, I'm happy to hear that. I wasn't sure before.
An excellent point, yeah. Almost every statistic is kind of like a fractal. You can zoom in for more details. So split it out by gender, by race, by age group, by geographic location. Sometimes those factors are independent, in which case the rate should be the same. But more often than not, or economic status and income is another big demographic variable. When you split on these things, you'll see widely different effects. One of the ones that seems low controversy but very effective is switching from regular soda to diet soda. And if you look at just the top line numbers, there isn't a lot of health benefit, which seems counterintuitive, right? But when you figure in healthy lifestyle as a factor in that, then you see where the effect comes in. Anybody else?
Can you say a little bit more on that? I'm not following that.
Sure, I don't have the stats with me on this study, but essentially, if you look just at soda drinkers and diet soda drinkers, they look marginally the same. But when you also consider like healthy lifestyles, as someone who goes to the gym or other factors like that, you'll find that people who drink diet soda will fare better in a global, what they're doing in their whole healthy life than someone who's drinking just soda. In other words, following bad habits and just the only thing you change is switch to diet soda is not a cure-all.
Right.
One question I have is this. You pointed out that we sort of have these natural cognitive biases. We're not really used to thinking statistically properly. How susceptible is this to training? I mean, can we sort of, is it easy to educate people to think better about this? Or is it too difficult so that's where we're just, no matter what we do, we're going to sort of lapse back into our usual ways of thinking?
That's a very good question. I think it is trainable, but I don't think it's the kind of trainable where people go to a weekend seminar, you get your certificate and you're all set. I think it's a tool set you have to build and use over time, because it's not intuitive to us to think statistically and use data and numbers, and sometimes the data and numbers are being presented in a way that's deceptive. So you have to be skeptical of, what is this number, where'd you get it, what are you trying to say with it? I don't think our brains are incapable of grokking these lessons, but they have to be taught.
And just a comment for me, like personally, like I have this knowledge, but how do I bridge that with behavior modification? Because I'm someone who does struggle with anxiety. I hate airplanes and all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting how the human brain can sort of just, the feeling part of us takes over.
Very true. Yeah, you could know all the numbers and it doesn't necessarily quell your fear. I don't have any good advice in that regard except to acknowledge and say, yes, I know that to be a truism for sure.
I used to teach a course on critical thinking, and what I found was that we all have the capacity, we all start off as critical thinkers when we're kids. What is that? How does that work? Show, prove me all. And then we kind of get into this habitual thing, and we're still critical thinkers, but we're selective about how, where you get a bill from a repair shop or whatever. You go, oh, wait a minute, what is that? How does that, where are the bad parts and all that? Whereas other things, we just, if it conforms to our worldview and it's comfortable and comforting thinking, we just accept and we don't think critically. So the idea is to become more broad and not just selectively critical think this and not other things. It's
Sure.
tough. It's really hard.
Yeah, it's really the lesson of Karl Popper. Finding
Yeah.
confirmatory evidence is interesting, but what you really want to try and do is falsify your hypothesis.
But also, you have to have some basic math skills, because half the country apparently believes that you can have a 1,500% reduction.
I'm all for that.
Basic math and stats we need more of, absolutely.
All right, so that was fantastic.